I call the September 16th, 2024 Finance and Resource Committee meeting in order. It is 11 a.m. I'll call for roll. Mr. Meyer?
Here.
And I list them around. Our first item is to approve minutes from our last meeting on August 22nd. I move to approve the minutes from August 22nd, 2024 Finance and Resource Committee meeting.
Second.
Any discussions about those minutes, Mr. Meyer?
No.
All right. Then I'll call roll to approve those minutes. Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. First item is, are we going to discuss the financial reports? Or are those just?
I thought C we would discuss, and A and B have been added requests, so that's under the old format,
Okay,
so that someone could access them if they wanted to.
okay, so then we will just start with, August 2024 financial. In the new format that we talked about in this committee and.
Yep, so I don't know if we'll want to do this every time we're kind of getting our cadence with the board and the committee. But I put together a series of slides we can walk through to just kind of walk through the report and check for understanding and what we're looking for. There we go. Okay, so we're reviewing last month's financials. Okay, there's a little lag, sorry about that. So what I'm really looking for this time of year is just these early indicators, right? So even when we see red flags, which we'll see on some things, it's so early in the year that nothing is going to have been overspent at this point. What we're trying to do is find these early indicators and then either on the revenue side or expense side, find out what is going on so that we're not surprised later. And this is the kind of update we'll have every month. So right now, when we look at our revenues and expenses, there's two areas that I wanted to dig in further. The first is our revenue and state sources. And then the second is our overall purchase services. And I'm going to show you kind of what steps we took to dig into that to see what might be going on there. Our largest expenses, salaries and benefits, are trending where we want them to be. So, really happy about that. That's the thing you always want to get most right every year. For the most part, every other expense you could kind of turn off if you needed to. So you could always tell the schools or department that you spent your whole budget, we're done spending. So when we look at this is our speedometers of our overall revenues. Again, the one that stands out to me is the purple one. We are projecting to have received about 1.6% of our state revenues through this point. We haven't received any. So I'm going to show you in a second why that is and why I'm not concerned at this point. This is just another view of that. Again, on my mouse isn't showing up. So on the left-hand side is our overall budget compared to projection and trend. You can see the overall budget is going to be the large blue line. We're so early in the year right now that both the green, which is the projected, and the purple, you barely can even see because we don't get much revenues, as I explained the last month, until later in the year. The one area, like I said, that's standing out is our state revenue. We were projecting higher than we've gotten. I dug into that. It's our county programs, and let me show you why that is, okay? So hopefully I can toggle back and forth here. So we purchased this new budget monitoring software that lets us pinpoint really quickly where things are. So I identified our, let's see, no, it's this one. There's our county program. And I just want to view the history and say, well, what's going on here that's different? And we really have no pattern. Our county programs, we get reimbursed, for all of our expenses, that's primarily Bell Phillips. And you can see that we have probably submitted for reimbursement, or booked our reimbursement without a real pattern. And so I would expect we'll be getting a bunch in September, or October, and that will catch us up to where we should be. You can see, and this happens as business offices turnover, patterns change. So you can see last year we booked almost all of our revenue at the end of the year. Other years we've booked it throughout the year. And so that's why we're having difficulty triangulating that trend. But again, I'm not worried about this particular line item because we get fully reimbursed. But I did want to show you how quickly we can look at our trends and kind of monitor. Just catching up here. Okay, so this is then just the sort of spreadsheet view, right? Of our revenues, and we can see I pulled out the state so we can see it quickly. Last year we received some money from the state to this point. That was again county programs. This year we haven't received it yet. Okay, then we're looking for the same early indicators on the expense side. Again, I mentioned salaries and benefits. We're trending, we're within 0.1%. So I feel really good about that. The spot that we want to dig into is our other area. And what that is, I can see from this graph, it's primarily our purchase services. So then my next step is to, and here we can see again on this worksheet, we've got about $16 million budgeted in purchase services. We've spent about $3 million. So again, we're not in danger right now. This is really just what's an early indicator. Because if we continued this current trend, the system would project an overspend. Okay. So we just want to be on top of this, each month so we can pinpoint those things. So we've identified that as purchase services, and now our next step is to look at those locations or departments that are trending this way, because I don't want to look for a needle in a haystack. And so we have another report we look at. It's coming up on my computer faster. So this shows me all of our, I'll call it like budget managers, have a category code assigned to them. So we can quickly look at each area and see what stands out as a material kind of issue. And the three that we found this month are technology, buildings and grounds, and academic performance. So again, really want to emphasize that we're looking at, no one has overspent their budget, provided everyone stays in budget, we're going to end just fine. But we want to have a level of reporting out to our divisions so they know where they stand, and also, back to the board, so where we stand. So what we do following this, then I reach out to each of these departments. They have a report just like this, so they can tell us exactly where they stand. So this is academic performance. So then Nicole and I had a discussion last week. She said, hey, we've bought all of our curriculum materials already. So I understand the trend. It says we're going to overspend, but we know what our budget is and we're not going to overspend. We're not going to keep that spending pattern this year. We bought our stuff. So they still expect to spend their whole budget, but the trend over months, we'll see will revert to the mean.
I think this is very different because in the past there was and Scott, and Jess, you can interrupt me, but I think there was more of an opinion of we have a $100 million budget. If we come in at 100 million, then we're okay. This ability to look at each department as a line item and to give a monthly update is, from what I'm hearing from our chiefs and directors, this is a new component to our internal monitoring. Is that a fair analysis?
Yeah.
Question.
Mhm.
Does our monitoring, does our forecasting and budgeting have a month to month? I know when I did spending budgets for projects, I had my total spend, and I had things like this that they would be front-ended, or we'd spend the money, but it wasn't a negative variance against the anticipated for that month. So, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that actually it's a good segue because that's what Jess is going to be looking at each month then to triangulate things. So let me get rid of this presentation. And I think what you're saying is, what did we expect to spend in August compared to what we actually spent in August? Would that be?
What did we expect to spend year to date?
Correct, I think you guys are seeing the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, August could be just August.
Sure,
It could be year to date if it's the first year of the cycle, first month of the cycle, then it is year to date by definition. Okay,
Do we have historical data like that per department though? Can we even look to see where?
well, even for the budget for the current year, if I know I'm a department head and I'm gonna buy the $100 thing in the first month, and then I'm only gonna spend $10 a month after that. Well, I spend $100 and it looks like on my total for the year, I've now overspent, but really I didn't, and everybody knows I didn't because that was the plan. So if,
So we have not asked our departments to tell us what their intention to spend is per month.
okay, all right,
So
all right, I get it.
instead we're going out to them and saying, is this an anomaly?
Okay.
And then Jess is going to be providing us another report at the board meeting. Hopefully, once we get our cadence a little tighter, we'll be able to provide that year too. But what she'll be doing then is drilling down further on items to make sure the things I'm concerned about are also the things she's concerned about, and what is the why behind those, and then if we need to remedy it. Oh, thank you.
Anything else for the August?
Not from me.
Then we can move on to the development of a subcommittee within the Finance and Resource Committee. Dr. Williams, you're going to speak to this.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. The Finance and Resource Committee under bylaw 10155 has the authority to work through the formal board of education to solicit names to serve on your subcommittee for a net zero group. I think it would be important to bring to the full board at an October board meeting the interest of this committee to form this citizens group, that charter, and I can help with the draft of that. I think we would want Kevin and someone from the business office, either Jess or Scott, to be part of that to lay out the intention. And then we would also have a process where you solicit interest from community members to survey to be on this net zero subcommittee. The names would then be approved by the full board under 015 that would have to be brought to the full board. That subcommittee of this board committee would have to adhere to the open meetings laws. So the meetings will be posted. They would be open and available to the public, and minutes would be taken. But that's the process in which you would have to utilize to create this subcommittee of the Finance and Resource Committee.
Can you please describe what the net zero concept is for the report?
The net zero concept is a interest that was brought to this committee, I want to say almost a year ago, by Dr. Worley. And Dr. Worley, would like to mirror, the school district's ability to look at sustainability, and renewable energy sources, the same way that the city of Wauwatosa has a sustainability committee. So it would mirror, the sustainability committee. It's just a different name. It's called net zero. And that's the purpose of this, to have a subcommittee of citizens that will work with Mr. LaFountain and Scott to look at ways where we can save money on consuming energy.
I thought the net zero was, not necessarily saving money, but having well, an environmental objective rather than a financial objective.
Maybe I'm sharing my objective of the charge, but I think it's always, I think that's why Dr. Worley brought it up at this committee, that it would not only save the district funds, but it also allows us to be more efficient with the use of energy.
Okay, and those projects, some have a short payback period and some have a rather long payback period.
They do.
That needs to be understood.
And I think that, and I think that's why it's a subcommittee of this committee. So, I mean, so candidly, if there is a proposal to put solar panels on all of our schools, but it's going to cost $5 million to do upfront, I don't know if this committee is going to lean in and say, let's move forward in that space. I think there are some school districts who have made that type of decision. My understanding of this committee, and I see Simon Rowland agreeing with me, is what can we do to conserve energy? How can we save money on how we are utilizing utilities and energy?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So to clarify, I would say it's both. It's to be energy efficient and to save money.
Yes,
So I think
Which
that's an understanding from the,
which I would hope is one and the same.
yes.
If you're energy efficient, then you are also saving money.
Also looking at different federal and state grants that we might be able to receive.
But to Mr. Meyer's point, someone could make the argument, and I think that's why you have to have a committee. You could have a committee that comes forth and says, you can be energy efficient and it's gonna cost you money. And I think that's when you would have to have a deeper conversation at this committee and then eventually at.
And, you know, from my look, it would not necessarily have to save money. It could be money neutral and environmentally beneficial, that just so everybody understands. That's a hard piece of analysis for those things. We could have geothermal in the ground, and we could have solar panels on the front. Yeah, so what would it be? Yeah.
But the next step is that we will put together a draft charge. I'll work with Ms. Ellis to get some type of survey that interested individuals can fill the form, and then subsequently in some board meeting in October, this should come to the board to form the subcommittee, and then we'll go.
Will we, does the full board have to approve the charge before it approves the members, or can that be done in one meeting?
I would recommend that we do it that, just to say so, to approve the charge, approve to move forward with it, and then on the back end, approve the actual committee members.
So then I'd anticipate, the full board voting on the charge in October, and then probably the members in November.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any more discussion on the net zero subcommittee?
Thank you.
Next item, is looking at the Lyndon Brown. This item.
May I just give another introduction to Mr. LaFountain before as he's pulling up his information as well. So it's been less than a year that we had Mr. LaFountain join us. If you recall, the role of director of buildings and grounds was not an administrative position in our district. And we felt that in order to find someone of Kevin's caliber, we needed to make that an administrative position. It was in a category called select employee. We elevated it, and I think we are reaping the benefits of elevating that administrative position because we have a very, very capable professional in the role of our director of buildings and grounds in Kevin. It would be good, Kevin, before you jump into your semi-annual report, just to go over again how many square feet you are responsible for, how many buildings. I think when you hear the totality of what we have charged Kevin and his team to do, it is it's a large task. But I've been pleased with Kevin's work, and I know he's doing a good job. So thank you, Kevin, for your leadership, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, we have 1.8 million square feet, 14 facilities, so it is a lot. That property portfolio demands constant attention. And as we know from the deferred maintenance list of items, that challenge is growing every day, every year. So I thank you for the introduction, and I am proud of the staff that we do have. I am trying to pull up. I'm not certain how to get this. You don't see the notes. Is anybody on that PowerPoint? Is that supposed to?
I'll work over your shoulder. I'll try.
Okay. No, I can page through this, but I'm not certain why.
Yeah.
Run the presentation. You run slideshow. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Right, for some of you. Okay, I'll go this way. That's
Then
right.
you can. And if you go, you just go show. Yeah, or you can go there.
Over there. Yep.
No, it's not working.
Let me go. I'll go right from the agenda. Thank you, Dr. Reed. Sure.
I think
So-
that was fine as far as.
If you guys are okay with that? Okay. So I've proven that I am not a PowerPoint expert.
Power tools, yes.
And now I really messed it up. Okay. Here we go. Thank you. As I was saying, with that kind of staff and that property portfolio, staffing is essential to making sure that we are serving the needs for all staff and students and the public. Currently, just an update on staffing, we do have 3 open positions that have been open since July. That has been the maintenance electrician, our master utility repair worker, and an operations relief worker. The master electrician retired, and the other 2 were resignations. So since then, to fill the void on the maintenance electrician, because there are no qualified staff to work on high voltage, we are contracting with Steiner Electric. 1 day a week, we have one of their electricians out on through all our properties, responding to work orders that we have been developed, that we hand off to this person, and they go through the course of the day taking care of the workers. We also have them on stage for any emergency services that may come up. They're our first call. Working through HR and Sherry Johnson, we're excited that we were able to get greater exposure on Indeed. And we are seeing a lot more activity on Indeed for people interested in those 3 positions. We have also, since last Friday, we have a lead custodian at Whitman Middle School that has resigned. This is the last day. So we currently have 4 open positions. Kevin Hughes, the operations coordinator, and I were excited that we have a lot of applicants to start going through and hopefully recruit some people to fill these positions. But it does make it more challenging with those positions gone. I am excited to announce that we are We have two of our newest ORWs, Operation Relief Workers, are going to be assigned a split shift to work from 9 to 5:30 during the school year. The main reason for that is when you look at how we're staffed during the day, our elementary schools have a lead custodian that's assigned from 6 to 2:30 p.m. One of the reasons they start at 6 is to have someone there for right to school. Is that what's called?
Right at-
Right at school. Thank you. So we're trying to cover that, and then obviously with school going till 3:30 p.m. or later, the difficulty is how do we have a presence of a buildings and ground staff member for that whole time when we only have 8 hours to work with. So Kevin Hughes and I came up with, let's assign 2 ORWs that will be the first call for elementary schools when they have an issue, when that building lead is not there after 2:30 p.m. That also, this ship also serves the role of, in the wintertime, let's say, for instance, they're available to plow snow for evening activities. They're able to help out with Christmas concert setups. And when they don't have a task of things to do, they will be doing the normal course of what they're going through at that season. So like right now, for instance, they may cut grass or do some landscaping. So we're excited about that. We think it's going to have a greater impact on being available to serve the needs of all the buildings. Next, while we can demonstrate the things we do with work orders and Fund 41 projects, there are plenty of ongoing initiatives that we go through that I wanted to make sure I pointed out. The work order system update, as I mentioned in my last report, our old work order system was antiquated, had not been updated for about 8 years. So we just went online with Brightly Asset Management Software. That went online on August 5th. And from what I'm hearing, it's received good response. Staff are using it and it seems to be very intuitive for them. And we're able to provide greater communication with this system as well on the progress of their work order. Earlier in September, I sent out RFPs for architects and engineering services related to a successful referendum in November. We're scheduled for interviews next Monday. We sent it out to 5 firms and we have 2 firms that are interested in interviewing. So we're hoping that after that, we'll have somebody on board. For the short time during October, when we have messaging and community engagement, we'll have the architect on hand to help us with that. Related, Dr. Means, to your conversation about net zero, another initiative I've been working on since I've started has to do with energy management and how we use our facilities and our equipment, Energy Star, and our Fund 50 utility budget. The Fund 50 utility budget goes back to an initiative started several months ago, and Jess was part of that. We engaged with a company called Data Wrangler for the purposes of segregating the electrical use in our secondary buildings that's related to support service, so that that money can be designated separately. So that project is just starting up, and we're starting to engage with Data Wrangler. Separately, I'd like to engage Data Wrangler on the energy management side. The district does have an Energy Star account, and that's a federal program that's provided at no cost. But there has not been any data input for 3 or 4 years now. For some reason, it just dropped off around 21. So I'd like to bring that up and resurrect that and get that data put back in. Energy Star is a great tool where we can take our buildings and assign when you talk about a scorecard or a grade for a building, we can assign a grade for our building as it relates to other buildings of its same type throughout the country. And it can grade it according to that, based upon its energy use intensity, or dollars per square foot that we're spending on utilities. I think it's a great tool to demonstrate how we get to the net zero concept being more sustainable, and it would interact with that initiative as well. So I'm going to engage Data Wrangler to help us with that and keep moving forward in that respect. Building automation system, commissioning and software, that was something I shared in my previous report several months ago.
Mhm.
This is a repeat slide. I think you might all remember. That's something that is always ongoing. Again, directly relates to the whole net zero and sustainability concept. We've been very aggressive since I started here to update our VAS monitoring software with HVA products. When you look at the district prior to 2018, none of our buildings had this kind of technology. Now several of them do, with the exception of East, Washington, Jefferson, and Fisher. But the thing to note is that it does take an investment, kind of going back to you have to spend money to save money. There is an investment for this software, maintaining it, updating it, to have constant commissioning of that equipment. And what that does is it ensures efficient use of utilities, because this stuff just can't run wild by itself. And it also maximizes the investment in that equipment to make sure that we're getting full life cycle. So that has a payback, both short and long term. And I think more importantly, it ensures an indoor environmental quality is achieved in each building, because that is a direct result of this kind of work as well.
Kevin, you gave me an example of this. I think it was with one of the pools, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I found that interesting. So maybe.
I've actually got a slide.
Oh, you know, all right. Perfect. So I teed you up.
Thank you. Yeah. I'll give you your $5 later.
So to clarify, East Washington, Jefferson, and Fisher, they would not have the capability at this time.
I'm sorry. What I should have went on to say further is that if the referendum passes, that updating of mechanical systems and software is included in their own buckets.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is what Scott was talking about. So if you can tell from the photos here, when I started back in November 23, the district had been going through a lot of issues with the new pool at Tulsa East, both from a operational standpoint and a indoor environmental quality standpoint. There were constant issues of stainless steel corroding because of poor air quality. All the ceiling fans, you see there's 4 of them in the facility that are meant for destratifying air. They were spinning the wrong direction and they were on 100%. So they were actually promoting evaporation. It's kind of like fundamental 101, what you don't do at pool. And a lot of this is not necessarily to anybody's blame. I think the construction of this pool was during a difficult time in history, from what I understand. So we engaged C.G. Schmidt, the general contractor. Prior to my arrival, a lot of these issues had been pointed out to C.G. Schmidt, so they were considered warranty repairs. One of the things this all occurred over the summer, some of the work, the slide you see on the left side, the 4 on the left side, has to do with the level of work that C.G. Schmidt performed. We emptied the deep well pool. They set up scaffolding. One of the problems we had was that the bulkhead that you can kind of see represented in this area right here. Oh, my mouse isn't showing.
I was doing the same thing.
This area inside here with the windows on top, at open air right there right now, where the structural element is, that had drywall on it. So you can see here in the scaffolding, that level of effort had to go, was underway in order to access it. And then it was decided, because of the work of the drywall, what happened is the indoor environmental failures had caused the drywall to sag, it was real saturated. So instead of replacing it, we actually went and it had just removed it all. And it actually provided a nice open air feel, kind of an architectural, nice look for that bulkhead. Helps with air circulation as well. So as I said, in addition to all the operational issues, huge component to that was the building automation system. And it kind of demonstrates why constant attention to how it's programmed, set up, and then how you continue to operate it over time. This is an example of how things can go out of whack, so to speak. So it was significant. There were significant humidity issues. Right now, the ceiling fan that you see, there's that cloud element that goes all the way to the back. There's 2 ceiling fans on that. That's a 12-foot diameter destratification fan. Those are now spinning the way they should, up towards the ceiling and at a very slow rate of speed. The way, much like you would spin your ceiling fan at home upwards in the wintertime to get that hot air down. That's what this is designed to do. So that effort has been going on for approximately a year. We expect C.G. Schmidt to have a final report to close this out that I'd like to share with the committee later. It'll provide a good summary of where we are and how we got to where we are now. And it also demonstrates the level of commitment C.G. Schmidt had in this project. At no time has there been any cost to the district for any of this work. And we'll continue to see lower energy use in this pool. That's why I go back to the Energy Star data wrangler example. I can't demonstrate that to you right now, the before and after picture. That's where the utility data input points to, much like you would track grades or student performance. Another warranty project is at Lincoln Elementary. You will see a lot of activity there, starting on the 23rd, working with BJS Construction, who built this facility. The panels that are around all sides of this building were installed incorrectly and are showing signs of failure. The photo on the left is on the south side of the facility, so it gets a lot of exposure to the elements. What we discovered working with BJS and PRA, the architect, is that they were installed incorrectly, both from the perspective of the backing system that's behind the panels that they adhere to and how they mounted all the panels. The middle photos happen to be the area on the north side of the gym by the playground. It has undergone a lot of abuse and they have failed by the cracks and the holes you can see. We're going to, the manufacturer's recommendations for something like this is just to install extra backing support to help stiffen that up. So essentially, in the layout you see here by the numbering, that's the work zone areas that you'll see. We'll be starting to have some work next week, Monday. We expect it to be about 2 weeks, weather permitting, and you may see a lot of activity out there. And BGS is doing a very good job. They're very good at working around schools and understand the needs we have. In the playground area, they're actually going to have a spotter on the ground at all times to make sure kids don't get any danger or any get in the way of it. So another exciting thing that points to going back, making sure things were done right, and then correcting them. And I would credit BGS and PRA for a lot of the work and follow through that they did. And then going back to just the actual projects and the money that has been approved by the board for improvements. These are a number of projects that we did over the summer. Not all of them, but some of the highlights. The photos on the right are for the Montessori entrance. That is a much more secure entryway now, updated hardware. The middle photo actually is right down the hallway here. That was an original set of doors, so that is updated and functioning correctly. And then the two on the left are for Fisher Elementary. That's a really good project because the 3-door section you see there provides a more secure barrier to the gym lobby. And then the other door to the office, previous to this project, that door was not a secure entry. So as people came into the building from the outside doors, nothing was preventing them to go in the office. So this mimics very closely what you see at some of the new buildings in containing people in the lobby area. 141 projects again, building a low Washington broken wall. The Washington facility was the focus of a lot of attention this summer, both planned and unplanned. The photos on the right are the finished product. Photos on the left are the course of work. All the stone removed, a new valve membrane was put back on, and then some extensive wall work, tuck pointing, and then a ladder was installed on that section of the roof as well. And then additionally, we had the stack replacement which is completed. And we expect everything there to be sorted out. Kind of demonstrate some photos that you hadn't seen before of how extensive the damage was once we opened up the wall cavity and other elements. And you can see that the crane that was working on site.
And Kevin, that, what I remember is we were butting right up against the start of school. So were we able to complete it without any school interruption?
Yeah, I think that crane work was going on the week staff were coming back.
Mhm.
So just in the nick of time. Whereas if something like this would have happened during the school year, it would have been a lot more clumsy to get the work done.
And I'll just remind the committee and the board that thankfully we have a policy that allowed Dr. Means to invoke the emergency action so that we didn't have to go to school. Do we know what the total cost is yet or not?
It's about 129. We had to replace the water heaters because a water heater from natural gas to electric because that water heater was venting into the old stack, and the design of this stack and the length of it prevented us from venting the water heater into it. And one other just kind of fun project was the Washington Outdoor Playground. It was all fundraised money by, I believe, Washington PTO. Some district funds went in to help support it. The two photos on the right was worked on last year, and then this outdoor classroom element was the red awning was done this past summer.
Mhm.
So, any questions before I go on?
No, I'll just say that I live right by Washington and even on weekends. There's always people.
Yeah,
hanging
it looks nice. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I'm going to go right into an update on the capital improvement plan. Scott and I were working on this. What's different on this plan compared to the one that was approved? And one question I have for the committee is whether or not you would like updates of this as we move along through the year, because there are things that change and we become aware of and that we add to this plan. I don't know if it needs to be approved again, because there are different items on here that so that's just a question I want to point out, and you guys can address it as you'd like. The change to this plan is you'll notice under security upgrades, additional cameras. Originally, the board approved, I think, $22,000 about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years. I don't know why it was $22,000 for each building, but in working with Laura Geisler and the review of our last safety audit, we've decided to, if you go to the bottom of this plan, we just combine the money into one lump sum of $308,000. And then we're going to go with Laura's list that she developed working with the building principals and SFOs for the high priority needs for camera replacement and additional cameras. So it's still going to be spent. There's just not a need to spend $22,000 exactly in each building. Going back to the list, what's different on here, Jefferson. That was our total cost for the roof section replacement that occurred this past summer. New item on here is building envelope property wall repairs, the north elevation, east wall. I've got a report that I'm going to go into later that touches on. That's for a priority shoring up of the wall system that was identified as failing. Doors at Madison are ongoing. Replacement at Roosevelt is completed. There's the item for the boiler stack venting at Washington. Montessori doors are ongoing. We just replaced 2 HVAC units for Fisher. Those just went online last week. The office remodeling project is finished, and I'll like to point out, I know there's a lot of talk about the cost of this through some design modifications and so on. We got below the $50,000 mark to 45, because previously we were over 50, I think closer to 55 was the budget. So we're happy that we were able to get that done. Western Mall at North, that's at Longfellow, there were some failing urinals. in one of the boys' restrooms that was replaced over the summer as well, and that was the cost on that. The roof section replacement, that is the total cost that came in. The projects in the following year for Longfellow, we're going to hold on those until we better understand our budget plan and the referendum plan moving forward, as we may have to reprioritize those projects to address any other issues that come up. So those are on hold for now. Whitman is a new item that will be in the report that I'm going to go for next. Tech Ed staircase and staircase door remodel. A curriculum request, well over a year ago, approve a door and window viewing project in Tech Ed at East for purposes of being able to observe classes that work is in design development right now. And culinary arts, there's a freezer cooler that was replaced at East this summer as well. And that's it. So the current balance after all of our projects, and these were the over here, these are the 20 next year's projects. We're at 462 based upon the balance in Fund 41 that I was given, 284. And I've also got on the right side for West, also in the report I'm going to go over right now, the canopies at the entries on the east side of that building need some remodel. Any questions about this?
So when you say, is everything that's highlighted or bolded on here, these were things that came up after we approved the budget? Or no, these were all, I'm a little confused.
The
as to what was
bold items are, correct. The bold items are new items. Some of the dollar amounts on previously approved items may have changed, where I think the roof replacement at Longfellow, I may have had a $500,000 budget in there. That's the actual cost that it took to do the work.
So then where on this report is the amount that was? Is that on here? So I'd like to see what was approved and what was.
I have to bring up the previous one that was approved. It should be attached to the minutes of that meeting. I don't have it accessible right now, but that would have been the one. So if dollar amounts change, is because the project came in over the estimated amount. And I think one roofing project came in higher than the anticipated budget. The rest of them came in under.
Kevin, could you scroll back down to where we see the balance? So to me, the concern going forward is with the passage of a referendum, we will get those deferred maintenance projects done that have been identified. But we don't have any kind of plan at this point. So I think we'll need to start talking about that, how we replenish fund. Because when that's gone, there is nothing, and we would be stuck in a spot again of deferring maintenance. Now, most school districts have to do that, and I suspect we won't ever be able to catch up on absolutely every piece of maintenance forever and ever. But to start talking about getting a plan in place to better fund Kevin's annual projects, so that we aren't deferring and then coming to the community and saying, hey, we've got to offset all these things.
So when you say that is gone, do you mean this budget, or do you mean if the referendum is approved, that money in the?
Regardless, if I were to ask Kevin, can you put together a 26, 27, and 27, 28 list of projects? The only money available is $462,000.
I understand, but there's a difference, of course, between running out of money this year and running out of money on a 10-year plan or whatever. So I just wanted some precision in me knowing what you were saying. So,
Did I provide clarity?
I think so. You say we need a plan across the board, whether it's short-term, long-term, finishing funds once they're consumed.
Yeah.
But I think, Scott, to your point, asking me to prepare that budget, that if I did it today, it might look different after November 5th.
Right. No, I understand.
Okay.
So where does the money come from to go in?
So historically, it would have been either purposely under budget Fund 10 so that you can
Over.
move it over, or not purposely, but you underspend and move it over.
That was nice. Thank you.
So we have, and correct me if I'm wrong. We have ability to issue bonds without it. If we have to pay off those bonds using general revenue within the levy limits that we have.
Correct. You could take up Fund 38 debt, but that would then result in needing to reduce expenses probably in.
Yes. But what you're talking about a plan, there's a solution strategy in my old line of work. But there's a lot of pieces to our
There's a mechanism.
strategy. There's a lot of different tools, and not all must be used wisely, of course. But to say there are more tools than is generally understood by people.
Anything else on 441? Okay, I'm gonna look up that document while you go to the next.
Thank you.
After my presentation. Upon starting here, I became aware of some issues at predominant failures in building envelope systems at both Jefferson, Whitman, some minor issues at Fisher, and Wauwatosa West. We engaged ECS Midwest. They've worked with the district prior to my arrival. They're our building envelope consultants. They were working over the summer on the items that we had noticed. A lot of information here to go over. I encourage everyone to read it in detail, but I'm gonna go over some highlighted areas here. So at Jefferson Elementary, both ECS and they hired a structural engineer to work with them. We identified that while this building was built in 58, there are several issues in the envelope that are concerning just visually. So over the summer, they worked with the masonry restoration company. We came in and did an investigation by removing sections of the walls for more work. Essentially, the windows and exterior areas of the building are failing. The curtain glazing systems have active water intrusion or other issues. They are comprised of aluminum frame curtain wall, transom fixed storefront systems, and then a description of all our doors. The majority of the windows are single pane units that appear beyond service life and are in poor overall condition. Much of the materials deteriorated and is a missing failed applications to sealant were observed in an attempt to prevent the issues that were going on. Seals and gaskets have deteriorated due to age. There are some photos here that demonstrate some of the issues both in the masonry walls and curtain wall. And as you move on, the structural assessment they did with MCE consultants discovered and provided resolution to the issue. The CMU brick hybrid system is no longer used in current construction, so they just don't build them like that anymore, not in a good way. There were techniques used during that time that were experimental or fast, and because of failures in those systems, they are not used anymore. Also, due to the construction, that the R value of those walls are at 2.1. I think traditionally a commercial building might be between 20 and 25. That demonstrates how poorly efficient that building is. And he goes on about how the issues with that cold weather and how it affects the energy consumption and the stress of equipment to keep people comfortable. Some of the windows have been replaced. The remainder are extremely poor condition and routinely experience water and air filtration. Their opinion is to replace all the window systems in the near term and to mitigate water infiltration and thermal performance. While this type of investment in new curtain wall and window systems will resolve the leaks, it will have a It will have minimal impact on the thermal performance of the building, as the window systems only represent 28% of the overall setup. The overall building, even after that investment, remained antiquated and inefficient. That is pointed, some short-term repairs are pointed out in the capital improvement plan. On West High School, this this report also recommends and points out that those two entrance canopies have failed, are in failing condition, need to be removed and replaced as soon as practical. So I've got that in to occur over next spring and summer in the next year budget. As you go on in the report, it does go over providing the drawings with notes on there that are quite insightful. This is the report from MCE, the engineer, that essentially backs up all the claims, all those statements made in the earlier assessment from ECS. We have deteriorating steel brick supports on 3 sides of the building and some significant cracking in stairwells that are identified. Immediately, the $30,000 that I pointed out in the capital improvement plan, that wall system is supported by steel angle welded to steel. The brick is experiencing damage, and you can actually see that wall system going out a little bit. So they're calling for us to get to the summary. They're calling for us to, and for short term, and that 30,000 addresses this. Helical brick ties on that face to just hold it in place and prevent any further damage and stabilize the wall. Medium term repairs up until full repair are identified on the cost sheet at the end of this report. And that addresses basically rebuilding the wall system. This is these are some photos of the work that they did over the summer by opening up the wall. That's that section of wall above that steel lintel up to the original window system. That wall you can actually see is bowing out because of the issues and the type of construction. So the $30,000 would be to immediately this fall put helical ties in that wall system to hold that into the CMU behind it and keep it stabilized and prevent further deterioration. That's a short-term fix for the safety issue.
So we need to do that basically so that like bricks aren't in danger of falling on people or falling.
Correct.
Okay.
So
here's another photo, south elevation, some water incursion. We're seeing a lot of rusted steel cell support. You can see the evidence of jacking of that steel shelf angle here. This is structural steel that has failed right here. Poor, inadequate masonry techniques when it was installed. We're missing more right here. You can see from this level how that wall is blowing out. The light you can see coming through the level right there. And then on the west side of that elevation, more of that shelf angle that is jacking and showing corrosion. Some more cracks because of a lack of a control joint. And these are some of the cracks in the building that they identified in the report. So I have the short-term fixes identified in the capital improvement plan. In the referendum plan, in the bucket of work for Jefferson, that the rough order of magnitude estimate, replace the curtain wall and rebuild the walls and address the cracking identified in the report. That dollar amount is in the Jefferson bucket of work.
and how much is that?
We assigned 1.5 million for that. And the roofing we've got in the plan as well. That roofing system is not essential, but in the next 5 to 10 years it should be replaced, but that's in the plan as well. Tulsa West, you can see from this photo here, what stands out to everybody about that canopy. Can you see the obvious?
Is it angled down?
Yeah. It's pitching down. So we don't know if that's something that happened recently or happened over time, but while ACS and MC were out looking at Jefferson, we cut some holes in the soffit to do some exploring. We don't know if this column, it could have settled when it was first built, it could have been recently. But what we do know is that roof system is pitched, it's not draining correctly, and that's an example of what's going on. So for years and years and years, the roof drain on this section of canopy is if you can see what's beyond the far lower left-hand corner, that's where the drain is. All the water is there and it's actually turned into a green roof. So it's good too, I guess, in a way.
So we can report that to the new committee?
We can, yeah. So both those canopies that are on that east elevation, you can see some water damage from underneath. This has been going on for quite a long time. This is the underside of that canopy where the structural steel is. And you can see in the middle under that column, that is the lightweight gypsum deck, which is represented over here. That's a lightweight concrete that was poured that the roof sits on. That is all failed and it's falling through. So right now that roof, all that's supporting that roof is the material of the roof itself, not the support of the gypsum deck. So the recommendation is to essentially rebuild and remodel the entire entry you see in this photo. And there's another one to the left of that sheet right there too. So that's the West and Jefferson. While West is not in the referendum plan, the dollars for this I assigned to the 26 budget. I didn't put a dollar amount in there yet, but I would consider that one of our priority building level projects for next year. That concludes the quick, not adequate review of that report because there's a lot of information. Good question, Mr. Murray.
Well, I recall back to the 2018 referendum, which did not include a new Roosevelt. And it came to pass that without a new Roosevelt, we had to replace the all the wiring in the pipes in the building. And we put so much money into that. And these are these tough questions about enrollment and capacity and what are the tipping points on big capital decisions. It's like if you have a car, do I keep putting parts in it or buy a new car? The hardest decisions we have to make. I don't feel that the superintendent has been allowed to make his recommendations. He's making the recommendations the board has allowed him to make. And I think there are tougher questions that the board needs to face about these capacity decisions and how to provide the best cash flow over the long term that derive from these decisions. And I just don't think I mean, I think 2075 committee was supposed to look at that. I'm not sure that they were able to come to a conclusion, but
I think, if I may jump in, I think it's the same community conversation that took place in 2005 and 2005, where I don't know how, I think the community is very split in terms of its preference on keeping the current footprint for all the elementary schools or not. I think it's a continuation of the conversation that took place in 2005. And so often, Mr. Meyer, you speak of how the community rose up and said, we're not going to close school. And I think that sentiment is still pretty powerful within the constituency now.
we'll know come November.
We'll know to a certain degree. I think to bring it back to this conversation, I think what Kevin will tell you is that the architects believe that we're getting very close. And you tell me if I'm remembering the briefing well, that the architects will tell us that we're getting very close to approaching that 50% mark. If you remember from the 2018 referendum, Mr. Meyer, the architects had this threshold of if you're putting in deferred maintenance costs of the upwards to 50% of what a new building would cost, are you at a point where you should build a new building? And I think Jefferson is getting close to it when you think about the curtain wall and that exterior work that needs to be done there to sustain it. Is that an accurate summary?
I think the deferred maintenance in ADA is approaching 25%.
Yep.
I think it's when you take it to the next, because that's not modernizing the building for learning. If you want to modernize it for learning, you're probably approaching that 50% period.
So when you take the ADA and the deferred maintenance, and you're including the curtain wall with the deferred maintenance, right? So
we're at 10.5 million.
So we're at about 25% of the cost of a new building for Jefferson right now.
Correct.
And your point is that's not modernizing that building. That's not anything new. In fact, that dollar amount will be money that people won't recognize, generally speaking.
At least from the outside, but besides new windows and some.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I guess to your point, Mr. Meyer, I think it's one of those ongoing community conversations that I think November 5th will address it somewhat, but I don't know if it's been explicitly stated that way. We're getting, and I think there's a lot of different schools that are getting to that point, but just not Jefferson, in fairness to Jefferson.
The question in 2005 was keep or close Wilson. And in 2018, we built a new Wilson. We approved the money. Jefferson, the day will come where we can decide to keep it open today. But a day will come where that community that utilizes that facility will look around and they will see that they do not have a modern building. And if that is fine with them, that's fine with me. But but they need to have that heartfelt look in the mirror conversation over in those areas about, we have similar one with Madison. And, we dealt with that with Underwood. We have a new
Eisenhower.
Yeah. So, we are approaching that year that's the moment of truth where we decide what to do. And the question is, how close are we to that decision? We might not have that decision at hand in 2024. I think we do, but that's another conversation. Okay, thank you.
I'll go over the Whitman report and Fisher real quickly, but essentially Whitman is quite an extensive issue at Whitman. You may have heard that on the front elevation of Whitman, those classrooms and so below that are another section of classrooms and band rooms, I believe. They are the subject of more and more frequent water infiltration issues where the hydrostatic pressure of rainwater under certain conditions is finding its way into those classrooms below. Dr. Means, you've heard some concerns from Sarah, the principal over there. What's happening is any time of the day, any day of the week, any time of the night, we'll get a call after prolonged rains. And most of the classrooms, we have to vacate all furniture and disrupt learning because there's maybe an inch of standing water. So because of infiltration.
Just so we know what you're saying, when you say hydrostatic pressure, do you mean pressure from below? Or
correct, pressure in the ground.
Groundwater pressure. We
Correct.
hear about that out in the western counties, central counties of Wisconsin, with all the rain. Houses that formerly had dry basements now have wet basements because it's not the roof leaking, it's the groundwater pushing up.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying. The
correct.
Groundwater pushing up. Imagine that, folks. Yeah.
Or pushing into the building.
Or pushing in from the sides. Just whatever. Just so we know, we're not talking about a roof leak now.
No,
you're not talking, but you're talking about a in-ground pressure Okay, thanks.
And that's why I engaged ECS on these four particular issues, is because they are very unique and they've been going on for quite a while. And I would like to address them so we can move on, right? Because they are important, they do disrupt learning, and they are there's a long-term effect to the district if you don't address them. I'm just going to shoot to some photos here. The course of work that we're going to have to go through, and this kind of goes through the history. We've heard of cases where this has been going on as far back as 2013, but it's been more frequent since I've been here. At least I've been here 11 months and it's occurred twice. And that's usually in the early winter, early spring when the groundwater is still frozen, which contributes to this issue because the water has nowhere else to go. And these were all the classrooms down below. So when you look at that whole roof footprint of Whitman from that aerial view, that whole footprint has classrooms below it that many of you have probably been in. So all of these, this is a storeroom, these band rooms, this wall system on the back there and behind that cabinet, we have to remove everything. It's gotten to the point that the shelves that are holding band instruments, we actually put wheels on those because we're moving them so often. And in this lower right-hand photo, water will come out about halfway into the room and saturate all the carpet. So that requires all hands on at strange times of the night or day. We have to move those classes temporarily and until those rooms can get dried up rapidly. I feel it's something that is not good to continue and risk. The potential for mold is always in the back of our minds that we're very sensitive to and want to make sure that we mitigate. That's the front view of that wall system. The proposed scope of repairs would be to essentially excavate out all the way along the wall, discover what the drain tile system is, if there is one, how it's connected, and then remediate that with new drain tile and then some new waterproofing membrane on the below grade section of wall. The drawings that we have don't really demonstrate what is in there to any accuracy. There's a lot of notes saying drain tile by others. So a lot of it's guesswork at this point. So what I'm proposing, because of what I think is an urgency here, is I've got identified in the Whitman budget plan and the capital improvement plan, I've identified $100,000 for now. We need to verify that. I actually just met with a construction manager and our representative from ECS that did the investigation. We met this morning at Whitman, trying to go over a proposed plan of attack and how to get to this. Because a lot of this is going to be investigative work and then regrouping, developing a plan and restoration. We're also going to engage another contractor on Wednesday. This is an expensive repair and it's difficult to bid something like this out. So what I'm proposing is we engage with qualified contractors that have the qualified variety of subcontractors that are going to be needed. They're used to working around schools because this work would be occurring during school. And look for both their best plan of attack, their experience on this, their proposed timeline of work. And it's difficult to impossible to assign a bid amount to this. So we're going to ask for some budget scenarios. And based on that, I'll be looking at 2 qualified contractors that can provide the best case scenario for getting this done at the cheapest way possible, if we have those things outlined ahead of time. Now, all these projects I mentioned, the West Canopy, to a lesser extent, there's a report on Fisher here where there's a slab outside this entry down the hall here. That slab is actually sitting over a classroom, believe it or not. I've never seen a building where the basement floor is underneath a side. It's an entrance canopy. We have leaking in that classroom right now under wet condition. it's not it's not a critical thing right now that I would place a lot of priority in. I do think the Jefferson, the West project and the Whitman project and I would propose that we pursue them as outlined in the budget plan. Because while Jefferson will be addressed with the referendum, the other projects don't have funding other than Fund 40. The board and administration can make a decision not to if you want to, but because it is an expensive proposition and it's something to consider to the points you were bringing up, Mr. Meyer. Investing in these facilities, but this is the current state of failure and disrupting what you do every day. So with that, I've got that done, and I've got a short little demonstration of the referendum package.
Well, with the hydrostatic pressure, there's
Time.
Yeah, how much more do you have?
I was just going to show them our referendum bucket thing, but it'll be 2 minutes.
Okay.
there's the water that's out there to keep it from coming in. But who knows where the water's coming from?
Well, it's rainwater.
It is, you're
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, yeah. It's only during
Okay.
prolonged rain events.
Okay, and so it's not coming from a sewer system because that's derived from the rain or
Correct.
or coming.
It's all a result of heavy prolonged rain events.
And that's coming off our roof.
No, it's not off the roof. It's just rain
Okay,
hitting that grassy area, just general rain
okay.
prolonged events.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't doubt you. I had the unknown, there's the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns. And I worry, as you are, about unknown unknowns too. We open this up, what are we gonna find? And so that's where, okay, thanks.
So I know I went over time. I just wanted to, it was hard to get this all in, but it was important that I got it in today so you understood. Because I'd like to begin this work for Whitman this fall in order to avoid any more disruption to the rooms over the winter and next spring. That's all I have.
If you want to do the last 2 minutes.
Just real quickly, I've been working with Scott and Sarah and Dr. Means on some more referendum communication. When we look at the list of work that's going on, working with PRA, we developed what will essentially be, and this is for Eisenhower, a multi-page packet that goes over the assessment project number from the deferred assessment that was done, and then lumps it into either safety and security, envelope, mechanical, and interior finishes. And then we break it down further by what is the deferred maintenance and what is an ADA accessibility.
If you recall, there's been calls from the community for us to explicitly outline what are ADA projects and what are deferred maintenance projects. I don't think that this is the level of detail that was provided with 2018. So what we're doing is we're taking the 2023 assessment of all the work that needs to be done, and we've identified what is deferred maintenance, what's ADA, and now someone has a checklist. If you need to have a checklist that says, here are the projects that are ADA accessibility component connected, and here's deferred maintenance connected.
So this is almost final, working with Sarah on a cover sheet, and that'll be done by tomorrow, and then that'll be something that can be publicized.
Because in fairness, I think what happened with the 2018 referendum was there was a matrix of here's all the list of the schools and here's what we said they were going to get. But it did not get down to this level of detail. So thank you to the team for doing this, and thank you to the community members who have been asking for this level. You want this level of detail? Here it is.
I apologize for running long, and I'm sorry about that, but I'm finished.
When you say this will be completed tomorrow, that's every school will have this for every one of our, I should say.
Yeah, this package here already has every building in it.
Okay.
With Jefferson, we're at 10.5 million right now.
Thank you.
We'll have a cover sheet put on this that has some narrative to it, and that it will be a nice package that can be publicized.
So Jefferson, 10.5 million. That's more than 25% of the replacement cost.
A new building is somewhere in the neighborhood of 42 to 45.
So it's double.
To the point that you and I had offline, for Mr.
Yeah.
Meyer, that the cost of building a new
Everything,
school has increased
Yeah,
since
yes,
2018.
absolutely.
Right? I mean, so I think the
Absolutely, yeah.
cost that we were saying for
Yeah.
2018 was somewhere around 28 to
25,
20,
something.
well, anywhere between 25 to 30 million. Now that number, and when you talk to PRA, it's somewhere between 42 to 45.
It was low 20s, but mid 20s, and it was different per site. But
The cost is going up.
okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. The CISA 5 monthly budget review.
Yep, so we have engaged with CISA 5, given them access to our financials. They're gonna be doing two primary projects, or multiple primary projects for us, but the first one they're gonna get kicked off the ground is monthly budget review, as in particular salaries and benefits. That'll be kind of their first push. So we've engaged them. They just got access to our financials. Hopefully they'll have something for us by October. Their CFO would be happy to join us via Zoom at an upcoming finance committee meeting or board meeting.
So my comment on that is I'm really not so enthusiastic about CISA 5 doing this. I would rather have independent outside review. I was very impressed with the review that's been done with the W system by Deloitte. That's just my opinion. So that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Moving to the financial transparency.
Next item, thanks to Sarah, this is live now. And we had told the community we're going to be doing essentially a whole bunch of stuff regarding financial transparency. We've got a site built now. We're continuing to build this out, but if someone accesses financial transparency here, it's going to take them right to this link that I'm able to update daily if I wanted to. But here's a list of all the financial transparency items that we said we'd be doing, the estimated completion date, and our progress on those. So anyone that is tracking, hey, what are you doing? They can come right here to the page, see what we are planning on doing, and see our progress on those things.
Thank you for the work on that, Sarah. An updated financial forecast.
I provided multiple things to the committee, video, PowerPoint, as well as I guess a memo. I was asked to revisit the long-range financial plan, essentially with the lens of switch over from yet here. Yeah, it doesn't. Oh, there we go. Not yet. I think essentially with the question of do we still need a referendum? That's what a lot of people are asking. I can confidently affirm to need a referendum. If anything, given some of the scenarios, perhaps we should have asked for more. I think good, so this should open. To me, the most important part of any kind of financial forecast is identifying what are those moving numbers and being really explicit, I guess, in footnoting what are the things included in here. So, for instance, one thing I had been asked really since I got here was, will the referendum give staff a 4% increase? And the answer is yes, but it also depends on what would happen with health insurance increases as a part of total compensation. So I thought it was important to footnote those things, because if we say that we can automatically afford something and we don't qualify, that it becomes a blank check. And so I really wanted to qualify those things as part of this projection. The other things that I thought needed to be qualified were we were looking at for enrollment. In particular, we are a large enough school district that if we have accelerating resident enrollment or declining resident enrollment, and it doesn't happen all at once, but kind of trickles through, we're going to get a declining enrollment exemption that will in large part offset any year-to-year needs to cut the budget. However, if we were to have a long-term enrollment decrease, whether that's open enrollment or resident, we would see that the projections for our needs would go up. And so the way that we need to offset that is we've talked about right sizing the district. And so if we lose students and we don't reduce the staff needed for those students, that would increase the deficit, right? I mean, if fewer students and we keep the same amount of staff, that's going to create a larger deficit. So I just want to be really transparent and clear. My computer is, and this is the only slide. That
Can you talk a little bit about what you mean by declining enrollment exemption?
Sure. So for resident students, if you experience a reduction in students from it's always a 3-year average. So from your prior 3-year average to your current 3-year average, and let's say you go down, those averages go down 10 students, you don't automatically lose 10 students worth of revenue. You would lose about 3 students worth of revenue each year. So eventually, if that happens forever, you'll lose all your revenue, but it's essentially a safety net.
Provided by the state.
Yeah, it counts as part of the revenue limit, so it's not,
Okay.
part of it would be state money, part of it would be taxes, but it's a way that provides relief in the revenue limit. So in particular, for small districts, let's say district of 500 students, if they lose 50 students, and it was all at once, pretty big catastrophe for district.
So I haven't seen my emails this morning. I did send you emails this weekend pointing out 2 issues I had with the forecast. One was the forecasted increase in resident enrollment. And have you been able to look at what I said?
I was in the ER last night with my son until 1 a.m., so I haven't checked my
Okay,
emails.
so you've been busy. All right. So you have 4 scenarios. There's 2 that say we increased enrollment, 2 that say enrollment is flat. I believe we should have at least one scenario where enrollment decreases, resident enrollment decreases. That would seem to be typical forecasting what could happen. You know, stock market goes up, stock market stays the same, stock market goes down. We need to know what we're going to do for each of those. A very serious issue, and I could be wrong, but help me out, that the scenarios increasing enrollment anticipate a 7% increase in resident enrollment per year, citing the MDR study. But when I look at the MDR study on page 45, says that we will increase a grand total of 325 students from 2023 to 2035. So it seems like more a 7%-ish increase in a decade rather than per year. And we've never had anywhere near those kinds of enrollment changes year to year for the past 21 years. So it looks, I don't know whether your calculations reflected the 7% per decade. I'm thinking maybe they didn't, but you're saying to people that we're going to increase 7%. We could increase 7% a year, and that would be over 300 a year.
I want to go back and look at that.
Please, you need to. I need to I think when you go back and look at it, you put yourself out there saying these things, and I ask that you go and revisit it.
Respectfully, I didn't say will increase. What I said is I used I'm not predicting.
Okay, you say 7% increase per year based on MDR study, your words. Okay, so
I'm not
okay, you cite this, and and I ask you, show me the page, the paragraph, or the chart, or the graph that supports what you're citing, because people will read this and believe it, and it's just not correct, unless I'm wrong, and I could be wrong. But right now, I have no confidence in this forecast. No confidence. Based unless you can show me I'm wrong, which is fair. I am wrong from time. I'm wrong a lot of times. Okay. So there's kind of no digging out of this. This is bad, what you published, unless I'm wrong, and then I'm bad for my assessment. But we need to know.
okay.
Because this is material. This number of resident students up or down, it has material impact. It's undermined the personal definition of material. It's millions of dollars that can swing either way over the course of a few years.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think the pushback I would give is what would the board like us to slow down and do? Because I'm doing about 2 years in 2 or 3 weeks.
I understand. I would, if you're going to publish a number, make sure it's good. And if your workload means you don't have time to publish as many numbers, that's not for me to decide. But if you, that's what I'd say. Okay. Now you just came on board here, pointing to millions of dollars in errors of the previous administration, and now out of the gate, I have this question here: do we have millions of dollars in forecast errors? And it's a fair question. So if we don't, and this goes to, do we? I believe we need outside independent assistance for the business office until we are sure about what the numbers really are.
So are you saying, Mr. Meyer, that the projection was too optimistic?
Oh, it's worse than 2 optimists.
So fair enough. So duly noted. Your perspective is that there should be other scenarios
Yes,
developed
that's
that are not as optimistic.
Well, how about a pessimist? Because
Fair
some
enough.
things go bad.
So I think that as I'm listening to everything, that's what you're asking for, and that can be done.
Well, it needs to be corrected. This citation
fair.
to the MDR study needs to be corrected, because we do have good news about enrollment. We have stable elementary enrollment that's been consistent. And in fact, it went up a little bit, and not a significant amount, but elementary enrollment, we talked about this last week, elementary enrollment is solid.
But I think but the summary is, I believe what you're asking for is a more pessimistic, whatever term you wanted to develop, pessimistic, more realistic scenario that does not have an enrollment increase, maybe even an enrollment decrease.
Well, and yes, we need at least one that says what happens if
there's a
I mean, we did decline. We per the registration amount, which isn't the same as the third Friday count. We were 5476 this year. The numbers I have, they were flopping around from business office before Mr. Becker came on. But, they were 5476 this year, but 5482 the year before, 5563 the year before, 5676 the year before. So we've had 3 years of decline in resident enrollment. And, so, you know, we can't, I think we have to have a forecast that provides, what if something, you know, declines again? Now, I suspect, Mr. your calculation was solid, but your input assumption is off here on the 7% increase.
Well, let me tell you how I would typically do this.
Okay,
Typically in the winter, to the board, and I would say, let's talk about what assumptions we want to use for forecast. I didn't have that luxury.
Right.
I was asked to put together something in time for this board meeting.
right. And you have no history here. You don't maybe have like 21 years data showing enrollment trends. That's in your, to push back this is valid and true for you. Yes.
So I will go back and I certainly want to double check the 7%.
Please do.
I can create another forecast,
Mhm.
and what we already know is it's going to look worse.
Yeah.
Because I think the general request from the committee was to affirm that the operational referendum dollar amount was necessary.
Okay,
Was-
and yes, and I suspect if you go back, and I appreciate, I have family as well, I have my own health issues as well. Life is a busy time. That if you go back and look at these on scenario 1 and 2, and projections are just projections, they're not facts, okay? I don't see how any way we can approach a 7%. And also in a scenario 5, we might decrease. That shows even more need.
Correct.
For a right. So in my lack of confidence here, I'm actually
Yes.
worried
Yes.
that
Underselling
we're
our
underselling your
our
what
condition.
you're trying to communicate. You're not trying to sell, you're trying to communicate facts. And that these revisions might present, well, I suspect would you that.
It's presenting a more rosier situation than what actually
I think
is.
it's probably worse than what
Correct.
this says it is, as far as the need for funds to do the programming that Dr. Means wants to do. And also then the other question about how many buildings, that's another question. And okay, so.
No, I think so thank you, Mr. Meyer, for raising it up. I think if I may summarize, what I'm hearing you say is that the 7% increase in enrollment may be too optimistic. And
That's, yeah.
yes, and
Okay.
if it's that's on a very optimistic side. You're also asking for some modeling on a very pessimistic side. And I think as I summarize, Ms. Amaral, what I'm hearing and what I know that the data is going to reveal is that the long range fiscal projections, if you don't take the optimistic pathway of 7%, and you take something less than that, then the dollar amount needed over the next 4 years is even more significant than what's
Yes.
currently in the projection.
Yes.
Which then I believe it answers the question that this committee asked for, which is, are we sure that the dollar amount that was requested for the operational referendum is actually needed? It's going to say yes and then some, based on the numbers. But we can go back.
Yeah.
Appreciate the feedback.
And you know, our elementary enrollment for years 1 through 19 was average 2353. Our elementary enrollment for the past 2 years is 2371. We're actually increasing elementary enrollment, but it's not 7%, you know, it's not, you know, it's what, up about 18, 19, 20 over, it's kind of like 1% instead of 7%. But as we discussed last week, our high school enrollment has gone down by a couple hundred in the past 2 years compared to the 19 years before that.
Mhm.
So if we're talking about how many elementary schools do we need? Well, it's the data is that we're not declining elementary enrollment at all. So there you go. So there's an argument that puts into the mix, but,
I think we can definitely come back with a more, I don't know which word to use, pessimistic or realistic, but we'll come back with a couple other scenarios.
well, maybe let's say, like, instead of a 7% annual, a 1% or 2%. Or a 3, what do you realistically think we could get for more kids? Just from your professional subjective opinion, it's
We can
not,
definitely come back with
it's
that.
not going to be 7%.
So we come back with that, just,
Yeah.
I think the general summary that we can provide to you for right now is that
Yeah.
the dollar amount necessary for the future of the district, is going to be significant.
Yeah, so if there's an error in the forecast, it's not that you overstated the need, it's that you understated the need.
Understood.
And that, I think it's
And
important.
we don't want to
We don't wanna
understate that. Yes,
Right.
understood.
Right.
Yes. So thank you for elevating that. Yes.
Do you still want to go through each scenario or should we maybe
Looks like
table
you're-
this until we
I'm
have?
frozen.
Oh, you're,
I think I want to
I think.
revisit it.
Fair to you.
I think the summary in the video is accurate as far as methodology.
Sure.
So I think it's worth.
It's the data you point to for your input,
Mhm.
your methodology. I'm knowing you, I gotta believe your math is good. But the input data is not good.
Mhm.
And when you see that, I'm sure you'll see what I'm saying. Yeah.
sorry. Any other comments, concerns? Okay. I move to adjourn, may I have a second?
Second.
Time is 12:42. Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
I am a yes.
Thank you.